Applicant indicates chute deployed.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we are seeing significant deceleration.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
Zdravo svima, ja sam Ika Ferrer-Gotić i tema naše reportaže je Mars i Perseverance rover misija koja je sletila u jezero krater upravo na Marsu. Ovako je to izgledalo.
We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Applicant indicates chute deployed.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Nav filter converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface of Mars. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
LVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Priming. PBA is nominal.
We have priming of the landing engines.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN Safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
Tonight, we are all into science and space. Multi-billion-dollar NASA rover Perseverance landed safely on the red planet after a 300-million-mile journey and a nerve-wracking plunge to the Martian surface. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance is safely on the surface of Mars, said Swati Mohan, an engineer on the Perseverance team. They're mighty things. NASA has unveiled a first-of-its-kind video of its car-sized rover Perseverance Perseverance, making its sensational landing on Mars, and released the first audio recorded on the surface of the red planet. But first of all, how awesome is landing on Mars itself? We will discuss this with Greg Dubos, system engineer, NASA's JPL Pasadena, California. Greg is joining us right now. Greg, welcome to N1 and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Ika. Good to be with you.
Great to have you. Okay, how awesome is landing on Mars? You definitely celebrated that in that moment in the control room.
Yes, that's for sure. If you've seen the images, we're all jumping up and down, very, very excited and happy that it ended up with the success. As you know, it's years of work, so we're really thrilled. Even though JPL has done it before, every landing is different, so we're all excited that it happened.
And the entire world was watching it. So, Greg, tell us more about your take on this mission. What was your job on Percy, and what will it do on the surface of Mars?
Sure. So I actually started working on Perseverance a couple of years ago while we were still building the spacecraft at the NASA Center Jet Propulsion Lab. So I was part of the flight system team that looks at the entire vehicle and makes sure certain functions are properly implemented. So we did a lot of testing all the way up to launch, which occurred in July of 2020. And at that point, I became part of the operations team for the cruise phase, which is the trip from Earth to Mars. So I was a systems engineer there, doing also activity lead, because there's a lot of things that we have to do during the trip. It's not just all easy and just rest. We have to make sure everything is working to prepare for that big day that is the landing that you've seen last week. And so now that the landing was successful, I'm transitioning to the surface mission, where I will be the systems chair, assessing the data that we get every day from the rover, make sure that the rover is still doing well, and that we can prepare the science activities for the next days.
O ovoj temi nastavljamo razgovarati s našom bosansko-hercegovačkom fizičarkom, astronomkinjom Adelom Subašić-Kopić. Adela, dobar ti dan.
Dobar dan.
Adela, zašto je baš ova misija toliko važna, Perseverance misija, za čovječanstvo?
Važna je iz više razloga, ali najvažnije je to što je fokusirana na traženje života na Marsu, odnosno prikupit će podatke, to je svevrsni astrobiolog zapravo, jel? Prikupit će uzorke sa Marsa koji će biti naravno doneseni na Zemlju sa jednom od sljedećih misija.
A ta misija trebala bi biti kada su Zemlja i Mars najbliže jedna drugo, to je svake 4 godine, jel tako? Dakle, 2024. godine, 25. godine trebali bismo očekivati tu misiju prema Marsu koja bi donijela mikrobiološke, ukoliko postoje, ukoliko ih Perseverance nađe, nazad na Zemlju. Ako otkrijemo da postoji mikrobiološki svijet, šta to znači?
Znači puno toga. Znači da se može krenuti u sljedeću fazu. Ako postoji takav život, onda mi možemo terraformirati Mars brže, onda možemo stvoriti uslove, najvažnija atmosfera za život na Marsu i krenuti dalje, naravno, u tehnologije kako bi napravili nas da je pogodno tlo za život.
We bring in NASA's communications engineer, flight communication systems, Josh Miller. Josh, welcome to N1 and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I asked everybody on the show the same question. How awesome really was landing on Mars?
So landing on Mars is probably one of those things that you never expect to happen in your lifetime, but whenever it does happen, it's quite possibly one of the most exciting things that you'll probably ever do.
Definitely. So tell us more about your part on this mission as communication engineer, and what is your job on the mission now the rover was landed?
Yeah, sure. So my position here, my job with the rover was actually twofold. My job was building the communication system for the main part of the mission. So that's the communication system that lives on the rover that actually allows us to talk to a couple of other spacecraft in orbit around Mars, and also allows us to talk all the way back to Earth. But then one of the other really exciting things that I got to work on for this mission was the communication system for the helicopter, also known as Ingenuity, which right now is currently on the underside of Perseverance. So we're looking forward to that taking flight here pretty soon. But my job was the development of the communication systems for both the rover and the helicopter on board.
How exciting is that? I mean, Ingenuity is the first of its kind. There are a lot of firsts on this mission, and that is one of the first things that we will see on Mars. When will Ingenuity actually take place? When will it perform its first experiments, or has it already?
So we have talked to it while it is connected to the rover underneath. The rover did talk to it and checked in with it and said, "Hey, how are you? How are you doing?"
I'm alive.
It said, "Hey, I'm alive, and all things are good right now." So, but right now, our teams here on the ground here at JPL are working on trying to figure out some of the plans for operations here. So, we probably won't see the helicopter fly for a couple of weeks to maybe a month. The reason for that is just that they need to make sure everything is in line and ready to go before they hit the go button.
NASA će za nekoliko dana obaviti prvi test Ingenuity u gustini koliko?
1% zemljine atmosfere.
1% zemljine atmosfere, a to bi trebalo ovako izgledati. Polazak Ingenuity 10 metara u vis. Ostanak nekoliko sekundi i povratak nazad na svoju početnu tačku. Drugi test Ingenuity znači da će Ingenuity popeti se 10 metara u vis, vertikalno, otići 50 metara naprijed, a zatim, Adela?
Zatim se vraćamo 50 metara, na tih 10 i spuštamo se nazad na površinu Marsa.
Tako, idemo. Treći test. EDL, or for audience entry, descent, and landing, or the 7 minutes of terror was definitely the nerve-wracking for everyone watching, especially you guys. But it went without any problems. How is it different from missions prior to Percy mission?
So a lot of the sequence that was used on the previous rover, Curiosity, was a lot of that, the timeline was used on Perseverance. So it was very, very similar. Now we had additional technologies, new things that we added to Perseverance to make sure we could land at this geyser or crater, that we could land safely and more accurately. So there were some improvements that were made, but like I said earlier, every landing is unique and challenging because the Mars environment is unforgiving. So despite all of the testing, there can always be something that goes wrong. So that's why it was tense. We were nervous, but the explosion of joy at the end, as you saw.
Yeah, we saw it. Like you said, we all saw the images from the control room, and we saw you jumping up and down, and that was definitely a moment. And it caught my eye, and I was wondering, wow, I can imagine what this guy now feels like, how he feels like right now. And then, hey, here you are, we're doing this interview together. But why is this mission specifically important to us, the humanity, to science, and why is it important to you, Greg, personally?
So first, this mission is really opening a new chapter in the exploration of Mars, right? I mean, Curiosity, the previous rovers really taught us a lot about the Mars environment, whether it was habitable. But with Perseverance, now we want to see whether we can detect signs of ancient life on Mars. And if we do find evidence that there was life on Mars, it would be probably one of the greatest discoveries, I think, in human history. So that's in and of itself, I think, makes this mission so important. And then we're going to collect samples with this mission that we hope to one day bring back to Earth so that scientists can analyze with all the equipment that we have on Earth. There's also a lot of different technology, the cool technology things that we're carrying on board, like a helicopter that maybe we can talk about. But so for all these reasons, this mission is great. And personally, I mean, I've always been interested in space. Mars is the next frontier. I remember seeing the images of Pathfinder years ago, the first rover that we sent to Mars. And to be here now in the team that helps operate this is just wonderful.
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
So there is a great way to connect with NASA, SpaceX people, engineers, microbiologists, geologists, other space enthusiasts, hell, even with Elon Musk. Now that place is, and pay attention now, the app Clubhouse. I want to introduce you to one of the best moderators of Clubhouse, Small Steps and Giant Leaps, IJ Maha. IJ, welcome to N1 and thank you for joining.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Ika. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So, IJ, you and I met on Clubhouse. We discussed space endeavors of organizations, private companies. We discussed engineering. Now, how important is this platform, IJ, and how has Clubhouse helped bring scientists, NASA, JPL, SpaceX, geologists, and all space enthusiasts together?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about this platform, but I think the word that we're looking for to describe the situation is accessibility. So with Clubhouse, you can either join a room or a conversation or start your own conversation anytime, anywhere on the planet Earth. So my passion, and shared by others around the world, is space. So I was able to join a community called Small Steps and Giant Leaps. We're able to host a room here called Space Rodeo, where we talk about space. And for all your viewers and all your listeners, what's beautiful about that is I can talk to people from ESA and the European Space Agency. I can talk to young men and young women in Indonesia. And of course, here in the United States, we can all share our passions, such as NASA and JPL. So it's a beautiful platform.
That is so great. I want to say that actually I met, making this documentary on Mars, I met Josh Miller and Greg Dubos and Toby Li right in your group, on your panel. So Small Steps, Giant Leaps, Space Rodeo, the way we interact is of great significance. So there's so much to learn, and I have learned so much, and we learn from each other. So how has science benefited from it? Just being open and transparent like this. But you know, it hasn't always been like that.
No, you're absolutely right. I think what we're seeing is that there's a great void or a disconnect between scientists, engineers, and their passion for space, and then with the normal people like us, me as a businessman, or the young children watching a movie about space. And this platform of Clubhouse allows people to have normal conversations. Nowhere on the planet could I have met you, and you have been so generous with your time, your energetic abilities of communication, and also your passion for space to meet all these people. I think when we meet them on a common ground, in this situation, a room we call it, we can actually talk, ask questions, interact. So it's a beautiful, beautiful platform. And I believe fully that you really receive what you give, and you've been so giving of your time and energy, Ika.
Thank you.
Really,
oh
the fruit.
Thank you so much. I mean, you're doing the same for me.
You are a very big part of our community.
Thank you so much. And you know, the best thing about Clubhouse and our group, Small Steps and Giant Leaps Space Rodeo, is actually that you get to meet people, NASA's engineers, that are just there talking, you know, just talking to you. They're just explaining how everything works. They're just asking questions. And sometimes I sit back and I think, wow, these guys actually programmed, constructed a robot and sent it to Mars. And we're just talking like we, you know, having a cup of coffee together. I really loved it about our panel.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, the other day in our panel, we actually had a lovely young lady, and she's a barrister, a counselor, a lawyer by trade. And she gets to make a career by doing contractual law in space, helping out businesses. You yourself is a prime example of a person who wants to communicate, share stories, and share your passion for space. And you can contribute, you can connect with people. And for me, like I said, I just enjoy talking about the subject matter. It's a passion of mine since I was a child. And if we strip it all the way down, we're just other energetic beings all across this beautiful blue planet, sharing our passion for space. I mean, our forebears are people from really the start of history. We look to the stars for inspiration, guidance, knowledge, and really community. So you know, this has really facilitated that. So thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing for us, for the group, for space enthusiasts, for everybody who's interested in space and shares the same passion, such as you and I. Thank you so much for joining us on N1.
No, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure. If I may assist in any way, please contact me anytime.
Thank you. As you said, during its primary mission, Perseverance will read the geologic history of Jezero and look for any clues about past alien inhabitants. It will also select and cache rock samples that a future rover will fetch and return to Earth sometime within the next decade. What do you actually hope for? What do you hope that Perseverance will find in Jezero crater?
So we are all very hopeful. I mean, we're hopeful that maybe there's some indication there of some indication of past life, right? But you can't be 100% sure. It's really a good educated guess. But we're all really hopeful that we'll be able to find some kind of clues that we'll be able to use to really make a plan for our next steps, and also to really have a much better look into Mars history.
And do you think, this is like $1 million question, and it's been discussed a lot, not only in NASA, but also in other companies, such as private companies, such as SpaceX. Do you think human mission will be able to go on missions to Mars? I know it sounds like probably like science fiction right now, but landing a robot on the surface of Mars seemed science fiction earlier in time, and look at us now.
No, I think that we will have humans on Mars at some point. It's the next step in our cosmic exploration. But the one complicating factor with going to Mars is humans. There's a lot of extra requirements, a lot of psychological impacts, and things like that, which we really have to take into consideration when sending a mission to Mars with people on it. So. Will it happen next year? I don't know about next year, but within the next decade or so, I think that's a really good bet.
where do we come from? What's out there? Is there life in other worlds? And I just remember being really excited about that from a very early age, reading books about it and really being amazed by all the images that the spacecraft at the time were returning. And so I was good in science and math, and so I continued in that direction and did my undergrad in France, actually, which is where I'm from. And then I moved to the United States because I wanted to have an experience abroad, and I was really excited about NASA's accomplishments. And I was lucky enough to join NASA after my graduate studies in the United States. So it's a dream come true for sure.
They are definitely lucky to have you, Greg. So we just mentioned the very ambitious mission of Perseverance is to seek sign of ancient life on the red planet. It will be the first of NASA's 5 rovers to sniff around for traces of long-dead Martians, inhabitants of a world that for its first billion years or so was warmer and wetter than the dusty planet we see today. What do you think Percy will find in Jezero crater? And this is really funny. I do have to say I'm very humble, but everybody from Bosnia and Herzegovina is definitely sure that everybody at NASA is pronouncing the crater wrongly. It's actually Jezero. The name comes from a Bosnian town right here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it's funny, and I don't think it's my place to correct anybody from NASA, but anyway, I will do it. So it's Jezero.
No, but please do so. Thank you very much. I will bring back this information to my colleagues from now on. I promise we will say it properly. Jezero.
Wow, I can't wait to hear that. Jezero, thank you so much. So what do you hope for 2 years from now? How will rover end its life, and what happens then?
Well, so the rover has a lot of work ahead of it, right? So we have the science mission that we talked about. Now, if things go well, we of course hope to continue this mission. You know, Curiosity's prime mission, the previous rover, also was 2 years or 1 Martian year, and it's still being used and operated now almost 11 years, right, after it launched. So we hope that Perseverance will last as long, if not longer. Okay. Now, in terms of the findings, I can't predict, but I trust the scientists and the people who picked Jezero as the landing site because there's a lot of interesting things going on there. We think that there was water. You know, it's at a lake, which I believe is the meaning of Jezero, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
And so we know that where there is water on Earth, there is life, and so finding a body of or an area where water existed is a really good place to search for life. So
there is
hopefully
a delta.
We'll find where we're looking. That's
exactly.
Right.
There's a delta, which actually is a sign that there probably has been water in that place. That's going to be really interesting. I promised Matt, your communications officer, that I wouldn't ask this question, but I do have to ask this question, Greg, while I have you on.
Okay.
Do you believe that in our lifetime, a human crew mission would be possible to Mars? What do you believe?
Well,
what do you think?
I mean, obviously, we're all excited about the prospect of having humans on Mars one day, right? Now, this mission, Mars 2020, is the first step of a larger approach of America to bring assets to Mars. First, robotic missions, which is really the specialization of my NASA Center Jet Propulsion Lab, but later on to help support humans. Now, we're all excited. We can't wait for it to happen, but it will take time. And I think starting with robotic missions is our best bet to further our understanding, I think, of the red planet.
And to be a part of that, it is such an honor. And me being part of this, even from a distance, it is a great honor. It is something that, you know, it's not anymore science fiction. It actually becomes reality for us, for the humanity.
That's right.
Razmišljamo o tome da idemo negdje drugo ukoliko sebe upropastimo, jer resursi na zemlji se troše, iako po našem suncu mi ćemo živjeti još 5 milijardi godina, ali pitanje je da li ćemo se dovoljno zaštititi kao vrsta, da li će nam biti tijesno, naprosto gužva će nam biti na planeti Zemlji i naravno i mimo toga radoznali smo, jednostavno nas vuče da idemo dalje. Zašto ne bi živjeli na Marsu?
Zašto ne bi?
Da.
Jedini način da naša vrsta, ljudska vrsta, opstane je da postanemo multiplanetarna vrsta. Je li tako? Čak i Sunce, kada dođe do njegove ekspanzije, Zemlja neće moći opstati. Njena atmosfera će ispariti u svemir, presušit će oceani, rijeke, bit će nedostatak vode. Mi bez toga ne možemo preživjeti. Jedini sljedeći dom koji bismo mogli pretpostaviti da je moguć je ipak Mars.
Da. Ali Mars je zanimljiv iz drugih razloga. Čak i ako ne mognemo njega da terraformiramo, da preživimo na njemu kao takvom, bilo bi zgodno napraviti bazu na Marsu. I to je jedno od rješenja. Ćemo napraviti bazu koja će nas vinuti dalje. Možda da u Europi, možda čak i dalje. Negdje gdje su bolji možda uslovi za život. Ali je Mars ključan kao stanica, kao možda buduće stanište, ali i kao stanica. Ne zaboravimo na to.
Da se podsjetimo Evropa, mislimo ne na zemljinu Evropu, nego mislimo na prirodni satelit Saturna.
Na Europu mislimo, da.
How do you guys plan on fetching and getting back the samples from Perseverance?
Sure. So the next step of this journey is going to be something that's called Mars sample return. We haven't come up with a creative name for it yet, but as of right now, it's called Mars sample return. And essentially what the idea is going to be is that we go back much in the same fashion with a similar kind of rover where we land on the surface and then drive around and pick up the samples that were left behind by Perseverance. So Perseverance is taking these samples and then caching them in certain known spots. And the next mission is going to be to grab those samples and pick them up, put them inside the next rover. And then once we have as many as we can find or as many as we can pick up, we are literally going to put them on top of a rocket and send them into Mars orbit, where they'll be picked up and brought back to Earth.
You say it so easily. We put it on a rocket and then we ignition, we go and we send it back to Earth. So easily said. You know, that's why I love you guys at NASA. Everything seems so possible. Impossible makes possible. So science, space, has it always been something that you wanted to do? And why NASA?
So why NASA? I can remember whenever I was young.
That is such a rhetorical question, isn't it?
It really. So, I mean, I think really it started for me whenever I was young. I think it was 1995 or 96, whenever Apollo 13, the movie, came out, you know, with Tom Hanks in it. And I remember watching that movie whenever I was young, probably 10 times over, and just being excited and so enthralled with the thought of going to space. And it's something that I've been probably thinking about ever since then, you know, 25 years ago or so. So it's always really been something that I've been interested in, and I really tailored a lot of my university studies around that, and eventually ended up here at JPL. And I could not be happier, could not be more excited about the work that I get to do.
What other projects do you work on, Josh?
So right now I am working on another mission called Europa Clipper. That's going to Europa, which is one of Jupiter's moons. A couple other ones that I've worked on in the past are a mission that went to the space station called EcoStress. That's on the space station. And I've also worked on some early stage stuff for Mars sample return. So always something new and exciting going on. I've also worked on a couple different CubeSats as well that are up in Earth orbit. So all the way from little satellites to things that are 1 ton big.
There's so much work. Do you ever have time off for yourself, or is it just work, work, work? Night shifts?
Sometimes.
Morning shifts?
So, I mean, right now we are in a very exciting time where there's a lot of different things happening with a couple different missions, and it does require a bigger time commitment right now, I'll say. But we also have times where things calm down and we do get to take a break. So
you take the good with the bigger hours, but it's a pretty good balance, and things are really exciting. And in the end, it's totally worth it.
What other projects do you work on, Greg?
Well, right now I'm 100% on Perseverance. Like I said, I'm transitioning to surface operations. We're working on Mars time because the days on Mars are 40 minutes longer than the days on Earth. So our schedule shifts with the days on Mars. So we sometimes have to work in the middle of the night. But I'm going to be doing that for a couple months full time. And then after, I've done my best to contribute, I will probably continue working on other projects at JPL, including potentially the next mission to bring back those samples.
Bring those samples. Is that going to be in 2 years when the mission is supposed to end? Or, like you said, in the next decade? Is there a certain time? This program of Mars sample return is really at the beginning, at the first stage, right? So it's going to take a couple of years, and I don't think that everything is set in stone yet. Yeah, we hope that in a few years we'll be able to get this mission off the ground to retrieve the samples. And you're going to be there in the control room, definitely jumping up and down. Just the same when Perseverance landed on Mars. Colleague, space reporter Toby Li joining us from Vancouver, Canada. Toby, welcome to N1 and thank you for joining.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
So much to discuss. First of all, Perseverance rover landing on Mars is something that we can easily consider an event that is already bringing people together. How cool is this? How important is this? And I'm sure you are amazed. I've seen your Twitter feed by what happened last week.
That's right. I think it's an incredible achievement. Not only have they pulled this off, but they pulled this off twice with Curiosity rover and now the Perseverance. I think that Perseverance is going to bring a lot of science. It's definitely inspired many people. And it's just begun. Perseverance landed barely just a week ago, so lots of great achievements ahead.
Lots of great achievements. Now in Jezero crater, the rover work begins in earnest during its primary missions. Percy, as we call it, will read the geologic history of Jezero and look for any clues about past alien inhabitants. It will also select the cache rock samples that a future rover will fetch and return to Earth sometime within the next decade. What do you hope for? What do you think that Perseverance rover will find in Jezero crater on Mars?
Well, in a perfect world, Perseverance does find signs of life in Jezero. And as you mentioned, yes, Perseverance will be extracting rock samples, dirt samples, and then a future return sample mission will send those samples back to Earth. But that's not going to happen in at least the 2030s.
2030s.
What I'm most excited about, that's right.
All right, go ahead.
Well, what I'm most excited about is the MOXIE box. Its purpose is to produce oxygen from Mars's atmosphere. It's made of carbon dioxide. If it works, hopefully we'll see much progress towards future settlements on Mars.
There are a lot of firsts on Mars when it comes to NASA and when it comes to the missions. To be honest, MOXIE experiment is actually my favorite one as well. Just taking in consideration that a test that a small machine that Perseverance brought to Mars will be able to compress carbon dioxide, which is most of the Martian's atmosphere, and then extract the oxygen molecules that will, and then carbon monoxide will actually be the one that will leave the experiment. That is really exciting. That is something that maybe we can even think further. Now, do you think human missions to Mars will be able to go soon on missions. And I know it sounds like, and I always say this, even to my previous interviewees, it sounds like science fiction right now, but you know, landing a robot on the surface of Mars, on a different planet other than Earth, seemed science fiction earlier in time, and look at us now.
Exactly. You know, SpaceX hopes to send humans to Mars in 2026. Their original aspirations was to launch their next generation rocket called Starship in 2022 to Mars, and then crewed missions to Mars in 2024. I think even Elon Musk, the CEO, did believe that was a little ambitious, but they've made great progress since the 5 years that was first released. I personally believe, although it is ambitious, SpaceX will be able to land humans on Mars in 2026.
Let's talk about Elon Musk and SpaceX now. I think that is probably the most exciting endeavor that we see from a private company. Elon Musk's last 2 SpaceX Starship tests, each of which ended in an explosive crash, but it was a successful test because we've seen twice the flip maneuver being successful, which was actually even the point of the test that SpaceX has conducted. And the conclusion of those investigations after the explosive crash should clear the way for a new SN10 flight Starship in a very near future now, maybe even this week. In fact, Musk tweeted last week that there was a good chance of flying this week. So when can we see Starship 10 taking that test and going Starship 10 hop, 1 kilometer hop, and the flip maneuver? And you know, it's very interesting, you know, seeing your pictures right there on the landing pad with the Starships.
That's right. Now, Starship SN10 is currently on a launch pad in Boca Chica, Texas, their Texas facility. We hope to see another static fire, a static fire being when they launch their engines. However, the vehicle is still bolted onto the launch pad. We hope that they'll perform a static fire today or tomorrow, and then hopefully a 10 kilometer to 15 kilometer flight no earlier than March 1st.
But do you think that human missions as we continue?
Oh, hopefully, fingers crossed, 3rd time's the charm, and Starship SN10 lands.
Imagine that. I think it was pretty clear what went wrong with SN9 last time we watched it together, and but you know, the flip maneuver and being successful twice is just pure science. Imagine now we've landed 1-ton robot on Mars. Imagine how will we be able to land 40-ton of human crew on Mars. This is all important tests, of course. But do you think it's a reasonable estimate that, as Elon Musk said, and as you said right now, that human mission is possible in 2026?
Right. Well, I think their development on their Starship vehicle in the last 2 years has been extraordinary. It's unlike anything we've seen before. They're building these rocket prototypes in the middle of nowhere in South Texas, outside in tents. It's very untraditional. We haven't seen this kind of progress since, well, the space race against the United States and the Soviets. I believe that they'll be able to launch humans in 2026, although, like I said, it is still quite ambitious.
But, you know, in our lifetime, hopefully, we'll be able to experience that. There is a topic that I would like to open right now, Toby, and this is something that you and I both discussed even yesterday, and that was actually the model of governance on Mars. of course, this is not the near future, but imagine cities on Mars, imagine humans on Mars. What type of governance model would be reasonable or would be in effect when it comes to Mars? There is not much literature on that topic, and this is why I want to open the discussion on this one. What do you think? Who should do it, and how should it look like?
Right. Well, it can be argued that it's a little controversial. However, SpaceX hopes that it'll be a free world. Elon Musk has mentioned that a government on Mars should be most likely a direct democracy. So that means that people will vote on important specific issues rather than politicians or individuals themselves. And me personally, I think that will be the most likely also.
Do you think that's possible if we take in consideration the human existence and governance of important issue on Earth? How do we not become what we've become here on this planet?
Right. Well,
I mean, those are all big questions, right? Those are all big questions, but opening a discussion about it, opening like you and I, we are not scientists. We are reporters, we are journalists, but do you think that it's an important question? How do we as human multi-planet species, hopefully in future, become not what we are right now on Earth?
Absolutely. I think that having these multiplanetary species, we have to learn from our previous mistakes. Despite the fact that Earth and Mars are very far away, it'll be very difficult for Earth governments to govern activities on Mars. Mars could be seen as the new world or the free world, just like the Americas when the first European explorers colonized it. I think it'll be a very similar story, almost like history is repeating itself.
What is your favorite space movie? This is always important. Everybody asks me that.
Interstellar, no doubt.
Interstellar, no
Christopher
doubt.
Nolan, yeah, amazing director.
Absolutely. And the black holes, a little insight of what it might look like, right? Mine is actually Gravity.
That's right.
I know it's, people say, well, a lot of things are not correct in Gravity movie, but I think a lot of things actually make sense, especially taking in consideration human psychology. This is definitely going to be a discussion in the upcoming years from NASA executives, SpaceX executives, Blue Origin executives. Do you think Blue Origin is one of the companies that could actually take people away from, actually outside of the Van Allen belt?
Right. Well, SpaceX and Blue Origin are quite different. Blue Origin's CEO, Jeff Bezos, his vision is not for Blue Origin to land humans on the moon or Mars. They'll instead be constructing large space stations for human settlements in space rather than celestial bodies. Right.
Do you notice that a lot of companies in the past 2-3 years, ever since SpaceX landed the rockets simultaneously back on the launching pad, do you notice an increase of companies and people wanting to go in Earth's orbit, in space?
That's right. Ever since the birth of SpaceX, the rise of commercial companies have increased exponentially. We see this not only in the...
you would like to do? Is that going to be something you would like to do? Absolutely. I'm there too. I'm there too. Yes. I'm hoping that would be such a great honor. What is next for you, Toby?
That's right. Well, I'm currently a student here in Vancouver, but I'll be pursuing aerospace and astronautical engineering in hopes, like you said, to be a part of this rapidly growing space industry.
Like Elon Musk said, you have two choices. Either sit back and watch us do it or be a part of that. So you're definitely choosing to be a part of that, right?
That's right.
All right, Toby, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. We have liftoff. All teams, triage alerts, please.
Acknowledge software.
NASA je od slijetanja Perseverance rovera napravio već gotovo 100.000 fotografija i snimaka. Na osnovu ovih jedinstvenih snimaka u visokoj rezoluciji sada imamo priliku i da vidimo Mars onakvim kakav on i uistinu u stvarnosti i jeste. Pomoću 360 stepeni aplikacije to izgleda ovako. Za kraj bih željela s vama još podijeliti jednu izreku astrofizičara i mozga 20. i 21. vijeka Stephena Hawkinga. Ne mislim da će ljudska rasa biti u stanju preživjeti narednih 1000 godina ukoliko se ne proširimo u svemiru. Elon Musk je dodao, jedini način za preživljavanje čovečanstva je ukoliko postanemo multiplanetarna vrsta. Sada ukoliko imate pitanja o Marsu ili misiji, pišite nam, a mi ćemo pitati NASU za vas. Ja sam Ika Ferrer-Gotić. Hvala što ste bili s nama.
Applicant indicates chute deployed.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we are seeing significant deceleration.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.